it's a tradition in this space that when you have a reading and when you have a show, when you have musicians present and the artists are present, that there's an interaction with the audience, that there's a conversation with the audience. So what I'm going to ask Wilfredo to come up, right? And then I'm going to open it up for y'all to just ask questions, right? And just have a conversations with any of the artists you see present. So you can ask them about the music, you can ask me about the poetry, you can ask Wilfredo about the art, you can ask us about the conversations we have around the art. And then at the end of that, what I'm going to ask is John Westbay.
Yeah, he's up there.
John Westbay is there. He's going to talk a little bit about the space itself, because it's an important space here, right? Okay? So, again, questions, queries?
Can you talk about the piece behind you and what it means to you and your mother?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah, so just to say that this is one of my latest pieces, actually, and I think it's a collage. It's a collage of memories, you know, and I the people who I kind of have talked to about this piece. So I mentioned that it has taken all my life to actually come out and make this piece, you know, because at some point I knew that I wanted to do a piece related to the memory when I was a kid, helping my mother in her sewing shop, you know. So and then a mixture of the fire and how we lost the everything basically, you know. So it's all a mixture of memories that are encapsulated in my mind, and so somehow you know, I was able to make that as a visual experience. So, and one thing about this is that my mother had, you know, this shop, and a lot of her clients were prostitutes, you know. So when you know, they would come to the shop, you know, to get her I guess dresses made, you know. But with that, there were a lot of stories, you know, that came through, because, you know, I was a little boy in the shop, you know, helping and learning how to I guess somebody's not moving. Yeah, so I gotta start moving. So yeah, so you know, and a lot of my pieces has to do with headdresses, you know, an extension to the face, or an extension to the person. So I almost see it also as almost like a headdress, and going back to ancient times where, like, for example, the Mayans will depict, and there's so many cultures also will depict just a ruler or anybody in the community, where the headdress will be actually the history of that person, you know. So the rolling pins, you know, being kind of like an extension of is my portrait, you know, and the rolling pins having a lot of history, marks and scars and things like that. Yeah, I don't know if that's a long answer for that. I mean, there's so much in that piece that I can't really, yeah, and it has little stories in there, and I think the layering is important for me. So, like, even like when you see something, then you see something else, and you know, and then you kind of get lost into in another thinking, you know. So that's the idea, you know. Even the finest little details, you know, that I remember being in the shop, you know, like when I was sweeping the floor, and then I would have a lot of this material, you know, like the thread. So it's all this visual information that is in your mind and in the memory that needed to be activated and somehow, you know, delivered. Yeah, question for the musician now.
Stay there.
Yeah, so, don't you love the poetry?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. So, and that's another part right now because we have collaborated with Sammy in many projects already, and and actually we're working on a book together. So it's something that is in there, and it's a special project that we're developing. And this is kind of like a sort of preview in a way of what's going to happen with that book. But the collaboration is very important because even though I have sit down with Sammy and tell him my childhood stories and things like that, that whole interaction with him had also brought other projects, other pieces, and I think that's very important. Like what's happening right now with the music, and I think that's sort of a unique reaction, like this music never existed before, and it just happened today, So anyway, yeah. Question?
Yeah, I have a question. How did you feel when Sammy was reading that poem about your mother counting chaos?
Oh, that is actually to me a very special memory because when you talk about simplicity or having the mind where everything doesn't matter, right? And then in that moment, you have a person who can just decide, this is what we need to do, don't worry about anything, we'll build it again, So that's a special memory for me. I can just actually see that moment that was happening in the house. So. Any questions? Any other questions?
Oh, I'm curious about the piece on the floor.
Yeah.
Because to me it conveys a meaning of, maybe a river Seine or something with so much crossing over, but I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but that's kind of what.
This piece right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that has a lot of history, that piece. It started, the whole, it is very complex because there's a lot of layering in my work, and I usually repurpose sculptures. So it's almost like I have I'm sure like from this event here, some of the sculptures are going to be transformed again. So if you see that piece, it has all this history of this series of works that I was working like around 2003, and it had to do with seeds, right? Sort of I guess pollination or seeds that travel, things that float, and get planted in different parts. And then I came and I started working in this series of casting faces, and I think that those two worlds, became very important. Where most people in the portraits in this piece have traveled, so from place to place, and they have made their life in other places. So it was sort of like a great marriage of those two series, because the seeds traveling to another place and then grow in another place, and I think that that's what we do as people, So.
That was